What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Couple Things.
With Shawn and Andrew.
Today we're talking about phases of parenting. Andrew is very excited about this.
I am so excited about this. Can I tell you why?
Yes.
1, I have never seen nor heard anybody break down the different phases of parenting. 2, I've just been desperately grasping. What?
That's false because you read this somewhere.
I created this.
Oh.
I created the phases of parenting.
I'm so excited.
I actually, as part of my studies for my doctorate I'm getting, casual flex.
I'm so cool. I'm so smart.
I'm proud because I love it so much. That's why I mention it so often. We had to read a lifespan development textbook, and then I thought of parenting development and the lifespan of parents. Anyway, so the first thing is I've never seen anybody do this. Second is I've felt this desperation of watching our kids grow older and just like wanting to stop the clock.
Yeah.
And balancing that almost like grief of every day that passes and this quick turnaround, like so much changes in these young ages of kids, with the understanding and hearing people talk about that it just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
So it's like this excitement, but grief. And then the third thing is an experience that recently happened where our oldest daughter is 5, or our only daughter is almost 5, and she wanted a drink or whatever. And so I was just about to go over to get her cup ready when I realized, oh no, she's old enough to be able to get her own stuff and to do her own dishes to a certain, like she's able to participate in a new way. And I need to mature as a parent. Like kids graduate from one phase to another, but parents also need to, it's not like I'm a good dad now and forever. It's like, no, it's a changing game.
Yeah.
It's going to be different tomorrow than it is today. And so what is the trajectory? And this breakdown helped me understand that.
I remember Sissy Goff saying that at our Family Made event where she said, if you write out a list every day of like 30 different things that you have to do for your kids, she said at least like 2/3 of that they can do on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a hard thing
Specifically
because it takes longer. It's more stressful. It's probably going to be messier, whatever chore you're talking about, than if you just did it. But I think it's invaluable and will provide a lot of good in the future if you're able to have patience through it. So anyway, we have broken down into 8 different phases. Parenthood.
You have. And I'm so excited because I want you to teach me. But I also want to say we have maybe only gone through 2 of these phases.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is encouraging to me because now we have a little better understanding of what's to come. Each of these phases that we're going to talk about has unique things that make it amazing and unique things that make it challenging. And so we're just going to talk through what some of those are like. And we have, again, just if you're listening, you've never heard anything we do. We have a daughter who's about to turn 5, a son who just turned 3, and a son who is 8 months right now. And so we're I think in maybe one of the hardest phases of life with all the chaos. There's like so much demanded of us physically as far as chores. And this morning was chaos. It was the first full day of school. We were making breakfast. We were feeding the dog. We were making lunch. I feel like literally we made each kid like 3 rounds of breakfast, and then you got to get them dressed. And it was like,
get their backpacks ready, get everything ready. So, and then we got about 4 different calls from school saying, you didn't do this. You forgot this.
Did you give them my number?
No, I just didn't have my phone. They called me and I didn't answer. So they said, well, try Andrew.
Okay. Well, so that's where we're at. And for those of you who are in different phases than us, I have 2 requests. Would love for those who are in different phases to share their wisdom and learnings of whatever phase you're in or have been through. Second is, if you've made it this far and you haven't yet, please subscribe to the show and give it a rating. I don't know. We have fun here, and I'm thankful for this show. So if you want to share it, go ahead, please.
Jump in, babe.
All right. The first stage of parenting
that we know well.
That's right. Is infancy.
Yes.
That's 0 to 1 year old. Having a child that's 0 to 1 year old. What makes this phase really special and amazing is you get to witness all these first. Yeah. So the first smile, the first laugh. Bear, our youngest, just started doing this. and he's like really interested in it. Actually, just to brag on him, he's learning so much. So he'll like mimic you. If you go like with your
Stick your tongue out.
he'll do that. He likes to do the so you witness a bunch of firsts. There's this incredible development where it goes from a little 8-pound baby to then you see him sit up, and then you see him crawl around, and then you see him flip, and none of that sounds amazing. But when you day to day see this little potato start developing, it becomes amazing because you're so in the weeds with it. And they just become interactive.
I would say, though, I feel like they do a lot, like some of the largest, they grow the most in that year.
Yeah.
More than like 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or 10 to 11. I feel like 0 to 1, there's the most amount of change. But I also think it's the absolute hardest on parents.
There's hormonal changes from both parties, both parents. There's identity changes, which we've tried to talk about and share a lot here.
Lifestyle changes, financial changes.
Schedule changes, priority changes, friend group changes.
Probably more fear happens too in the first year than any other year. Again, I don't want to say this though because we haven't gone through elementary, middle school, teenage years, college years. So I don't know.
Also, if you're listening to this and hearing all these things and intimidated by it, don't be, because all of the changes that we went through, even though it didn't feel like it in the immediate moment, I look back and my gosh, the amount of maturing and improving and focusing that we have done and growing, we've connected so much. Like our marriage and relationship has developed so beautifully. Yeah. I've become a man in this process. I really feel that way.
You think so?
I'm becoming a man. I'm becoming a man. It's like, dude, you got to step up to the plate and freaking make plays.
I have become just a rock star.
Yeah.
Mom.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
No, I'll double tap that. I'll hit. Yeah.
Double
I agree.
tap that.
Is that the right thing?
I don't.
So
I don't know.
So it really is I think it's one of life's greatest adventures. And this 0 to first year is very difficult in these following ways. You have all these kind of physical hurdles you have to jump. So there's sleepless nights. There's constant demands. Like the baby can't do anything. So they need to have their diaper changed. They need to be fed. They need to be soothed. There's a lot of developmental things that as a parent you feel responsible for. So just, you got to be so present, so hands-on, and it's tough. Like there's no real off switch for parenting.
No.
And with a young baby, you're probably not sending them to daycare in the first couple months for sure. So you're just there all the time and it's constant. I was thinking about this today. We've said that the first 4 months were the most difficult in our marriage. And I think that's true for the first baby. I think for our second baby, it took us about 5 months after the birth to adjust. And I think for this baby,
8 months.
8 months. I literally feel like now life is opening back
Cruising.
up. We're kind of doing our thing together in the full breadth of it, like making fun of each other. And
Yeah.
I love doing that with you.
Me too.
So
I had said with this one, it felt like double, but you have so much distraction with our third. So it's not just you and the baby. It's you, 2 toddlers and the baby.
Yeah.
It took us double the amount of time to find the groove.
Yeah. One of the questions we had written down for this section is, how does this phase test you? And literally you're just put in some crazy situations where, imagine 1 a.m., you just got woken up, like jarred awake by a crying baby. So that's like a very flagrant feeling. There's something logistical that needs to be figured out between you and your partner, and you're now both tired. You just both got whatever. You've probably not had a lot of sleep leading up to this. Now your sleep got interrupted. Now there's a crying baby. So like your cortisol levels are so high. There's sound machines. There's crying. You're trying to communicate through that, and it's impossible to. So you're saying, what'd you say? And then all of a sudden now you're mad because of that. And then it's like, also it feels stressful because the baby's coughing. Do we need to take him to the hospital? You're like, what? I don't know. There's just a lot of flying bullets, you know?
It's a time and period where you're navigating so many unknowns because it's just new. And then it's also hard because on top of the sleepless nights, you then kind of wake up and start your day and you're either staying home to parent all day, which is such a beautiful thing, but also very taxing. It's a full-time job. Or you're going to work and someone else is watching your baby, whether it's a babysitter or a nanny or a daycare. And so then you're going to a full-time job.
Which is like emotionally taxing.
So there's,
anyway.
I do feel like in kind of the infant and toddler years, there's no off switch. There's no like being able to sit down for a while and say, I'm going to do nothing.
Yeah, and because also your breaks are like in 5 or 15-minute chunks where the baby's maybe sleeping, maybe not. And anyway.
If there are 8 phases, we should move to the next one.
I'm not in a rush. We said this the other day on Sadie Robertson's podcast that it's for those time periods in that phase of life. Like if there's a mom that sits down and has 5 minutes where it's like probably too tired, maybe doesn't want to make a phone call, doesn't have enough time to go out and see friends. It's like if we can make a video that brings a smile to their face or makes them have a new thought or like pulls them out of that fog, then mission accomplished. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
It is wild that this phase, I feel like, completely transforms the parent, but the baby doesn't remember a thing. If I was going to speak to myself back in the day, I feel like, we're in it right now. What am I saying? This phase goes by so quickly, and it has like this selfish feeling to it where like the baby will not remember this. Obviously they're gleaning a lot of development through this, but the cuddles and the dang, like even in the middle of the night, in the moment it doesn't feel good, but there's nothing like holding your child when they're sleeping. It's like magic, and you don't really understand that until you do it. I'll stop talking. Mike is yours.
No, I agree with you.
Okay. You want to move on to the second phase?
One.
Second phase is toddlerhood. That's when the child is about 1 to 3 years old. This is what makes it special. So we're ending this for our second child, which is crazy. And I'm sad right now. I'm sad because we're already through.
But we have toddlerhood coming again.
I know. It's amazing because there's first words in this phase. There's first steps. There's like this newfound independence and personality that's developing. This is when our second oldest, Jet, he learned how to ride a bike before he was 2, but like this passion and love he has for bike rides and dinosaurs, like, oh, it's so fun to see a glimpse of who they're becoming.
I also feel like this is truly when like their personality starts to come out and you start to learn things about your kid and who they're going to become, which is really cool. From 0 to 1, I'll put it this way. You're getting ready for your first birthday party and you're like, I don't really know what they like, baby toys and whatever. But by like the second birthday, you're like, my kid likes this.
Yeah, it's fun.
You learn so much about your kid. They start having preferences. They like different colors. You can tell if they like to pick out their clothes in the morning or if they could care less. You can see how they have preferences of how they go to sleep and what they want to sleep with and what they like to eat. It's truly like their little personality starts to form. And it's so, so special. Toddlerhood is so special.
Also, I feel like physically, like their face starts to lean out. Usually you kind of, they become less of a baby and more of like, oh my gosh, that's what they're going to look like.
They start not looking like a baby.
Like Jet's smile when I feel like,
gosh.
This is the phase that we started to see both of our kids just light up with smiles. And you're like, oh, it's different than a baby smile. They got full teeth.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're starting to get haircuts and that's pretty fun. This phase is challenging though, because there's temper tantrums. There's like this impulsivity with kids that they can't control. They're learning to control. They're testing boundaries, exploring autonomy. Some people call this the terrible twos. I don't feel like we went through that phase. I feel like people say that to intimidate you. It's tough, but like it's not terrible twos.
I think we have talked about this before. The book that we read for like discipline and kind of how to navigate that world and like teaching kids boundaries. It was called 1, 2, 3 Magic. I think it describes the terrible twos, not outwardly, in the best way, which is it's more about the parent than it actually is the kids. Because I feel like the twos or the threes, when they start challenging you and trying to figure out boundaries and the autonomy and like everything, it's less about the kid because they're very consistent.
Yeah.
It's more about like yourself and what your triggers are and how much patience you have. How many times can you repeat yourself? How firm can you stand your ground? Because the quicker you kind of define lines for your kids, the easier it is for them. Because Andrew and I have talked about this a lot. I grew up around a bunch of families who I got to see very, very drastically different, like, disciplined lifestyles. And not in like a spanking timeout kind of like what choose your method type of way. It was more so kids who learned how to get away with things by pushing their parents far enough that they finally caved, and kids who parents stood their ground. And whatever it was, it could be something as simple as, can I have ice cream right now? It's 6 a.m. in the morning. And a parent being like, no. And truly standing that ground, you can see that those like boundary lines are then, if they're solid, a kid gives up on it really quickly moving forward.
Yeah. There's a lot of dynamics at play there. I feel like I'm so thankful for our constant communication of like, sometimes it's intentional constant communication, sometimes it's not, but like just getting on the same page so that we can define what our boundaries are. Honestly, this podcast has been huge to discuss all the different things of what those boundaries entail. But then that way you can just like, we have a good sense of what our style is and what is acceptable and not acceptable to us, that then we're able to collectively and consistently, as a result, communicate to our kids.
Boundaries are so confusing though. I'm giggling because as a parent who gets tired, it's so easy to cave. But when you cave in an inconsistent manner around your kids, it becomes very confusing. So it challenges them to push the boundaries even harder because they're like, oh, well, mom and dad actually caved yesterday, but they didn't cave before that. I threw a bigger temper tantrum yesterday and they gave in. So that's really confusing. But Andrew and I, the reason why I say boundaries are hard is because Andrew and I have a rule between the two of us of like, we can't cave. We can't show our kids that inconsistency that confuses them. And so every once in a while, one of us will say something, and as soon as it leaves our mouth, we both look at each other like, frick.
Yeah.
Now we actually got to like follow through with this.
Yeah.
When it wasn't that important to begin with.
But you got to see it through to the
end.
But
since you said no, or since you said you can't do this or whatever, now it's like, here we go.
One thing on that note that's helped Shawn and I is not getting in a quarrel then and there. Like, Shawn, don't tell him no. Yeah, like don't do that in the moment when the kids are right there. It's like, no, we try to be on the same page through the moment, and then it'll be like, hey, let's reassess this or address this later. We have like weekly meetings where we try to bring up anything that's become a pattern, and it kind of takes us out of the immediate emotions of the whole thing.
I will say, going back to the terrible twos and the threes and the toddlerhood, there are a lot of people who say they don't love it because of its challenges. I think it's some of my favorite times with our kids because their personality comes out so much.
Yeah, and then there's like PJs, and I love like the little baby kid fashion of like getting them dressed up, and then there's this really precious, because they're not really independent yet, they're just looking to you, and that's like really tender.
But then you see a confidence come across with them for the first time of like, no, mama, I got it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
They're starting to take risks a little bit and get outside their comfort zone.
I love 2 and 3.
Like the kids going to Sky Zone and jumping off into the foam. It's like, that's always a big, precious moment.
What has been your hardest, do you think, average year with the kids?
Well,
because I think I have a distinct one.
This year's been the hardest.
I know. An age.
I think none specifically. It's just the aggregate of like okay, now we got 3 kids. One's a baby. I'm trying to be the best parent to Drew that I
Yeah.
can be while also being like soaking up all these baby cuddles. And it's always like this tension. So I don't have an answer.
I think I do have an answer. I think the hardest year for me, and I remember feeling it with Drew and I felt it with Jet, is from 1 to 2.
Oh, I get that.
Because they're mobile, but they can't communicate and they're not mature enough, which it sounds funny to say mature, but like they're in such a developmental stage where like they can't talk, they can't communicate, they can't rationalize anything. They're just mobile little things
Yeah, I get that.
that get hurt.
I double tapped that.
Uh-huh.
One of the questions we had written down is, how does a toddler girl different from a toddler boy? We know friends that say for boys, ages 3 to 4, or the age 3 to 4 is tough. Like they're just little butt heads, I think is specifically how they said it. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if it's boy or girl. For us, I feel like it's birth order too and personality types. Like our daughter is the oldest and she's a perfectionist and she like
Type A.
yeah. So she wants to listen.
She wants to people please. She wants
Our boy is just swatting stuff left and right. Really well mannered, but
defiant.
like very physical. No,
He's defiant. He's
he'll poke back a little bit,
sure.
but he's just testing the waters, I think. So yeah, you start to see though, our 3-year-old boy, our daughter is super physically capable. Our son is 2 years younger and like
just enjoys being physical more than our girl.
yeah, and definitely is prone to take more risks. Anyway,
someone asked me the other day, gentle parenting or like not, and I said I think it depends on the kid. I said, but if you've had a boy, I don't know how you gentle parent. And the person just started busting out laughing. She said, finally, someone who understands it. And I was like, boys I think it also goes further than that, past girl and boy. I think it's just different per kid. I think every kid is wired differently. Even in the coaching world, every kid is wired differently and responds differently to different things.
yeah. Last thought, we mentioned the 1, 2, 3 Magic is kind of the book we've used for disciplining. We would recommend it, yes, because it's worked for us and has been helpful to us, but also really I think there's other disciplinarian techniques that would also be equally helpful.
Sure.
Just I think it's worth strategizing and coming with a system for, because like what you don't want is the reaction of like, I don't know how to respond to this, so I'm going to just unleash my emotions.
Yeah. My favorite thing about 1, 2, 3 Magic was less about the like actual disciplinary style to input. What I liked about that book was it in depth explained developmentally where kids are each year and how you, in a psychological way as an adult parent, have to act in order for that kid to actually understand you.
Yeah.
Like it more so taught you about the psychology of kids and how kids can actually process information.
Yeah. I'm kind of catching the vibes that you're enjoying this podcast. I think you're into this. You're kind of dragging your feet there, trying to act like...
It's not dragging my feet.
Okay, first of 8 phases that we've written and broken down is infancy. Second is toddlerhood. Third is preschool age. Now we have 2 in this phase. So this stage is really special because there's real drastic development of language skills, imagination. Oh my gosh, we've seen that.
This phase is really sad to me.
There's more vivid expressions of like curiosity, and then they start to spark real friendships too. Oh my gosh. This was a huge new chapter for us. The kids came home from whatever they were doing last week, and immediately they wanted to go play at the neighbor's house. And I was like, no, that's crazy. It's really fun to see, but they're like wanting different relationships than just the parents.
If you know me, you know I love to be cozy. So finding loungewear that I can actually wear out of the house has been a dream come true. The Skims Soft Lounge Collection has the softest fabric that has officially replaced all of my old lounge sets. Take my word for it, this line is good. I'm obsessed with Skims. I always have been, and now they just went up a notch. I could be having such a hectic day. My whole mood changes the second I put on my Skims soft lounge sleep set. It's like buttery soft, like a lightweight perfection. And if you haven't gotten on the matching pajama set train, this is your sign. Who knew something as simple as matching pajamas could truly make you feel like your whole life is together? After a long day of running around with the kids, filming things for work, and trying to keep up with errands, I genuinely look forward to changing into my Skims lounge sleep set at night. Like, I think about it multiple times a day because it's so comfy. Shop the Skims Soft Lounge collection at skims.com. Now available in sizes XXS all the way to 4X. If you haven't yet, be sure to let them know I sent you. After you place your order, select couple things with Shawn and Andrew in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows.
As a parent, you have to manage energy levels of the preschool. Also, it's hard because like you have to, okay, they're at school and you might get feedback as a parent that they're X, Y, and Z, but they might be totally different at home. They have a lot of questions. Our 3-year-old asked why. We were at the barbershop yesterday and the little guy was just like, why, what's that? Why? And you have to prepare the kids for school emotionally, physically still, because you're probably still getting them dressed, and like intellectually. So now it's like, hey, we need to work on the ABCs. We need to work on counting. She's struggling when we get to, she can count to 11, but then after that, it gets confusing. Which, by the way, why is the numbers 11 to 20 so different? You have 21, 22, 23. In every language,
11 to
it's
20,
different.
yeah.
11, 12, 13, 14.
15.
Like at 15.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
I agree. I think 3 to 5 is hard because you're less teaching boundaries. You're more teaching like life skills already, which is so intimidating. You're having to simplify very, very large concepts to them now. So, stranger danger. You're following your subconscious, what's right and wrong.
Even the concept of God or like nutrition, all of these things, you're like...
Values, you actually start having to teach now. So respect, responsibility, thoughtfulness, helpfulness, kindness, consequence. You teach that younger, but now it's larger. Yeah, it's a lot. This is very sad to me. This age is very sad because I feel so much in this phase like my time with them is already fleeting before like real school starts.
That's how I feel too.
And it's scary. Like to know our daughter's going after kindergarten next year, I'm just like, how? But it's also so beautiful. I'm one of those parents that will forever feel like I don't have enough time.
We should talk about that. I think it's Jordan Peterson talks about the age of 4 to 5 being like, there does feel like a shift of it being so internally focused for us as a family. And it's so like, just all of us are huddled together emotionally and spiritually. And then by the age of 5, like they start exploring the world beyond us and in different ways, like the friendships we talked about. Also, I think he talks about by the age of 4 or 5, they need to be well socialized or like well liked by other kids and parents. Because if not, by age 5, they're going to be the kid of like, we don't want our kids hanging out with little Jimmy. You know, they're not well disciplined or whatever. So it's kind of pivotal in that sense.
There's so many things to balance as a parent. Whereas like part of you wants to keep them home forever and stay home with them forever. And then part of you is like, no, they need to socialize. They need to be around friends. Going to a daycare or a school can be a really good thing for times at different days. There's just so much.
And it's good for them to see work. And like,
I know.
we were talking the other day to Drew about why do you work? It's like, well, it's a really kind of cool format to meet other people and bless other people and to build relationships and to use the skill set that God's given you. And anyway, would love your perspective on that. But like, they need to see that too, I feel like. whatever that means to you. Maybe it's like working the garden at home or whatever, but I feel like that's good to see the application of how you spend your time. Anyway, so just for perspective, 3 of the 8 phases take us to age 5. Now you'll start seeing bigger blocks of time.
If you guys are podcast listeners, there is a very high chance you've heard about AG1. And that's because this is a brand we've been using and loving for several years now.
It has become a daily part of our routine for 4 or 5 years. And it's important to me that the supplements that I take are of the highest quality. And that's why it's become a daily routine. And this is why we've been drinking AG1 for so long. Unlike many supplement brands, AG1 is researched and developed by an in-house team of scientists, doctors, and nutritionists who have decades of experience in their respective fields.
And I know I can trust what's in every scoop of AG1 because it's tested for 950 contaminants and banned substances, while the industry standard typically only tests for 10, which is actually crazy to think about.
Taking care of our health shouldn't be complicated, and AG1 simplifies this by covering our nutritional basis and setting us up for success in just 60 seconds a day.
I love that AG1's ingredients are heavily researched for quality, and every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support.
Replace your multivitamin and more with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/couplethings. That's drinkag1.com/couplethings. Check it out. The 4th of 8 phases is the early school age, and that's ages 5 to 12 years old. I presume, and this is where I'm pulling outside sources, this phase is special because you get to watch a child grow into their own interests and talents even more so, like really see that blossom. There's participation in school activities as a result of that. And then those friendships like really mold. I have lifelong friends that I made in this phase of life.
In early school years?
Justin, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for sure. Not you?
No.
I feel like this is so, I mean, this takes us to middle school,
Yeah.
you know? It's challenging though, because helping the child deal with different social issues like peer pressure, my gosh.
Bullying.
Yeah, bullying, and then supporting them through school and all the successes and failures of that would be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a little out of the water here because we don't have any kids this age, but
I know. I also feel like potentially, again, I don't know, but I do feel like it's within the early school ages that you will see their vulnerabilities and their, natural strengths. So do we need tutors? Do we need speech therapy more so? Like, I guess you can pick up that younger. Are they, someone who has a hard time socializing with like large groups? Do they have a hard time learning? I feel like more vulnerabilities will show themselves within those years.
The book Anxious Generation and Jonathan Haidt talk about before the age of like 13, 14, I think, as being pivotal because there's so much neurology going on and like your brain is just developing that it is, I mean, we're going to need to be so cautious in navigating what our kids introduced to. It's like a certain type of discipline to keep them growing, but not overwhelmed with like crazy new concepts, Anyway, it does feel like this age and phase, peers and friends start to play a bigger role. That freaks me out, I'm so excited and I don't want to be overbearing. I feel like I'll have a tendency to, but like what friends are they going to make? Because it's so formational.
I know.
And then what adults are those friends going to introduce them to? It's like Justin's dad, my childhood friend's father, he married us. Mm-hmm. He's a mentor of mine. Mm-hmm. So
it also, Andrew and I have talked about this age probably the most in particular and maybe the next one too a little bit, but wanting to be that safe haven home where all the kids come to play.
Yeah.
Probably because we have trust issues.
Control issues.
Yeah. But like, I want to be the house that all the kids come to play. And that's because I feel like I can control what they're all exposed to.
Shawn's working on that as we speak, so we'll keep you updated. But how can we make it the most fun, safe, like healthily adventure-oriented place?
Yeah.
Next phase. You
Where
ready?
I don't have to send my kids off to.
Yeah, because also, I feel like there's people that start doing summer league travel for their kids because they're trying to get college scholarships by the age of 12. Youth sports, we have a whole different thought on. I think there's a podcast out that we've done it. Search for it. Anyway, I feel strongly about developing strong family culture together. But the 5th of 8 stages is the adolescence phase. This is when the kids are around 13 to 18 years old. Really special because you get to see your child mature into an individual with distinct opinions, hopes and dreams and aspirations, and then maybe get a hint of like this adult-like interaction, which I read a book by Andy Stanley. Forget the exact title of it, but it's about parenting. And it's like the goal for raising a child should be to have a great relationship with them when they're adults. And it's like, I think 1, 2, 3 Magic has the whole premise of how can we raise responsible, contributing adults, right? Mm-hmm. So you start to see that in this phase. It's hard though because there's mood swings, puberty around here. There's this desire for independence and like trying to establish themselves. There's like the youthful rebellion that's a tale as old as time. Mm-hmm. There's more risk taking, and that can usually define the teenage years. Dude, you can get in trouble in this age. Like
big trouble.
You get your license and then all of a sudden maybe you get like speeding ticket, whatever. You're like, just if we can just get our kids through this unscathed.
I know. I was gonna say, I feel like it potentially will start younger in today's culture and world, but I do feel like 13 to 18 is this world and age where that adult-like interaction and desire for independence is there's a gray line there between your kids thinking they are mature enough to have that independence and you as a parent understanding and knowing like they're not, but how receptive are they to that? Mm-hmm. I think this is also the age where like you have drugs, sex, all the big things, big trouble, big exposure. I mean, full transparency here, 13 to 18, I traveled the world by myself.
That's crazy. You were an adolescent.
I was an adolescent.
Your brain was just freaking...
My very first international competition where I was solo, I was 13, 12.
And you turned professional and started getting like a paycheck
at 12.
So you were a freaking early school age, according to this breakdown. Your life intrigues me, to be honest.
I get that.
We're both in counseling, so that's great. How were you in your teenage years? I feel like I was a third kid. I had 2 rambunctious older brothers. I was very independent. I think I mostly made good decisions, but I definitely almost got arrested several times. So however that nets out, like usually a good kid, cared about school, participated in school activities, almost got arrested, mostly because of my driving.
I think these two for me are reversed. So the next one you have is young adulthood. I think as an adolescent, I had so much pressure and responsibility put on me that I wasn't allowed to be a kid. And that wasn't from my parents, but it was from the Olympics and the USA national team and traveling. And I had such pressure to like be an adult, to keep myself safe, to keep myself healthy, to perform for our country and do well, that by the time I hit the next phase where you're supposed to be maturing, I went backwards. And it was like, I need to go back and...
Wow.
Because I was such, I was so perfect. I had to be like, let me go be a kid and let me go probably make poor choices and do what all my friends were doing. I don't know how to say that.
What other sport is like gymnastics and how you go pro so early? It's very unique. I mean, we know that there's that young skateboarder.
Young swimmers.
But then you have like child actors and all these TikTok stars now. It's kind of unnatural.
I do think it is unnatural. It's just extreme. It's extreme.
This is a hot take thought, but we always talk about compounding in all aspects of life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like everyone financially, especially, will be like, the earlier you start, the better. I don't think that applies to age 12, though.
No.
Like I think there needs to be like a maturing and
For sure.
and building a framework and scaffolding of life that then you can build the house on. You know,
I do think for the most part, I was a very lucky kid that, like, I had a coach that really wanted to protect that childlike mind that I naturally had because I was an adolescent. And even outside when we would be traveling the world for the United States and doing stuff, he would still allow me to be that kid in waves. He desperately tried to protect that from me or for me. But yeah, I think putting too much responsibility on an age that's not ready for it can have negative consequences.
and by not ready for it, there's a couple different things that come, like literally from a brain development.
That's what I
standpoint.
mean. Yeah.
But also, I think it's like an experiential standpoint, from like a mentorship or community standpoint.
Yes.
Anyway,
Because my adolescence then took me into my adulthood where I didn't have those friendships that you naturally form in school. I didn't have that ability to socialize with peers who were my age. I was a 13-year-old who was only around adults. I didn't know how to be around kids. It was like it took a lot of time for me to kind of level out and balance back out what I missed. So I do think you jeopardize that in forcing your kid to grow up too fast. And again, that has nothing to do with my parents. That had to do with my career.
shout out to you though, to your credit. And this is by the way, if you're listening, again, this podcast for Shawn and I is invaluable because I just love the conversations we get to have. And I learn about you here 8 years into marriage. But
Thanks,
I have
baby.
been more impressed by you in the last 3 weeks. I've always been so impressed by you, and I thought we
Wow.
were at the ceiling, but you've just
The past 3 weeks.
impressed me.
Why?
You've taken on a new resolve and like perspective
Thank you, baby.
that I'm really impressed by.
Thank you, baby.
All right, 6th of 8th phase. We're gonna call this young adulthood. It's gonna be around 18 to 23 years old. Mostly, I'm categorizing this in like the college age years.
It's just wild
What?
to look at. It's just wild to look at.
Do you agree with these breakdowns so far?
I'm learning them as we go.
Okay. So
Young adult.
So high school's over. This is just like the generic trajectory. High school's over. Maybe you go to college. Maybe you don't. Still, you're like kind of getting your first job. Maybe you like enroll in the army, whatever. It's special because as a parent, you get to observe your child making independent life choices, whether careers or relationships. Like my brother got married, met his his spouse when he was 19. And you start to see the culmination of your parenting efforts of like, all right, this thing's fully baked, like legally they're independent now, which is crazy. This phase is challenging though, because as a parent, you have to let go and allow the kid to experience life on their own terms, maybe make their own mistakes and not intervene as much, or you can't and you shouldn't maybe. So that's tough. Do you have thoughts on this phase?
Again, I can only relate this phase to myself because
Okay.
we don't have kids this old. But 18 to 23 was, I finished high school, retired from gymnastics, moved out of my parents' house, became completely independent, rebelled against everything that I knew, made every major mistake I've made in life in this
including dating me.
Met you, got engaged, and got married.
In this phase?
In this phase.
The young adult.
Which is wild. And it's such, I think 18 to 23 is the scariest time. Because you have kids in college who are truly trying to figure out everything they've learned in life so far. They're trying to figure out how to implement it into their own world. And they're most likely going to veer off for a while and be like, oh, wait, my way actually isn't as good as I was taught. So I'm going to come back to what I was taught. But it is such a crazy time of letting them go off.
This is the Amish term rumspringa, which is where the Amish youth leave their homes and have like a year limbo period to re-enter adulthood. I don't know, like just when you look at rites of passage across time and cultures, this does feel like a pivotal time.
Yeah, it's a scary time.
Even how the law is set up, like we talked about.
Yeah, because even how, like, think about this, health insurance, you're still considered a child.
Yeah. And these years I slapped on this because you're under health insurance till 25, right?
25.
Super arbitrary, fluid. Obviously, some people mature faster than others, but I found it helpful to break it into these chunks. And maybe it reflects my development. The seventh phase is adulthood, roughly ages 24 to 30 to 35. Like settle into a career, maybe a second career, and you start to. Here's what's weird in life.
Wait, adulthood only goes to 35?
Well, as a parent, here's why. I'm open to suggestions here. Look, I'm open to suggestions, but I feel like as a kid going through it, your life goes in 4-year blocks roughly until you graduate, until after your first job after like college roughly. Because you're talking like preschool, and then you have elementary school, and then you have middle school, then you have high school, then you have college, and you have your first career, and then adulthood is like the long and steady, and it's kind of like when am I going to graduate to the next thing? Because you're kind of used to the 4-year chunks.
And you think you graduate to the next thing at 35?
Here's why: as a parent, I'm just saying around 35, maybe your child now has kids.
How does that work?
Your 35-year-old kid has kids.
Oh.
This is the age of your kid is 24 to 35 in adulthood. And then the grandparent phase is when your child is 35.
So it's when your child potentially becomes parent.
Yes. Again, that's going to be fluid. But like then as we've experienced, it's a totally different relationship with your parents, right? And it's like more hands off, whatever. There's all the old tropes about being a grandparent, but what are your thoughts?
We're running out of time already.
Running out of time? Oh, with our kids?
Yeah.
It's special. I'm excited, and I can't wait to get to know our kids as they grow up.
We should quit our job, go home forever.
A couple things that come to mind. I've heard the ages of 4 to 14 with your kids is called the golden decade. And it's like just a really tender place because they're not super independent. They don't have the driver's license. I've had the thought of like, how can we just maximize that 10 years with each of our kids? It's hard. What a blessing and treat it is to be a parent.
What a blessing and a treat.
Let us know your thoughts on how I broke this down. Let us know your lessons that you've learned. We're here for it. You have closing thoughts on this?
I think we should have a team meeting, you and I.
You're deep in this.
I'm deep. I think we got to reconfigure our life a little bit to protect some more time with our children right now.
To me, this helps see what's ahead of us. And
I
so
know.
I'm glad we did this because maybe we do change based off of like the preset blocks that we're about to walk into with the phases of our kids. But our kids are little, and what we have ahead of us is time, thank goodness. But it's a responsibility, and I want to show up for our kids well.
Me too.
So
I love it. Good job, baby.
I want to set the framework of love, honesty, compassion, all these fruits of the spirit things. It's a real honor to shape the kids. And are you just trying to zoom through that?
Yeah.
You're ready to close this out.
That's a new podcast. What you're about to get
You're all
into.
in your vibes right
No,
now.
I'm just thinking it's been an hour.
All right, we'll close it. Thank you for our TED Talk, for listening to our TED Talk. If you made it this far, please subscribe to the show. Hit the like button. What?
These are the life lessons I want to teach them. It's truly just a new podcast, and I love
All
it.
right, we'll do a whole nother podcast on that.
Okay.
I was trying to do a good job with
You
that.
did a phenomenal job.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
I love you.
Did I dominate this podcast?
Yeah, but in a beautiful, beautiful way.
All right, that's all we have. I'm Andrew.
I'm Shawn.
Next time.